So this is assigning work items for things that we want to do this cycle. Oh yeah. And I think the first thing we should do is get some work items out of the general X planning sessions that we had, the requirements gathering session, because while there was lots of good discussion and perhaps more than could fit in that, I don't believe there was any actual action items out. Oh, no. There were a few action items out of there, but not what we actually. So among other things, I don't believe that there was a documented decision on the X server version. Oh no, there it is. Yep, 110. There is documented decision. I'm just misremembering things.
We had some doubts on the X input stuff.
And Chase has got back to me, and I believe Bryce, and
he's cool with 110.
Yeah, it's
forward toward keep.
So it means there's essentially no work for him in updating that, because it's what we've got now.
Good. And I was in the session about the plumbing freeze, and it sounded like they are not going to push the plumbing freeze. But even still, I think that they'll appreciate having X locked down early.
Yeah. Let's see, so.
And we're still going to have that PPA to experiment with new X and stuff like that.
Yeah, I talked briefly with Steve Langstack before this, and he said that it sounded like the two options were either a PPA for the point release upgrade in DS, or new package names for everything.
Right.
It's kind of messy.
That's not
packages.
New package names for everything is not an option.
So PPA.
PPA, right?
Good. Agreed.
So yeah, so if we can have that PPA, rocking by day one of LTS,
and so there would be one PPA per point release.
Yes, and one for each point release.
And right, yep. And that PPA would get frozen at point release, and that PPA would get enabled by default in so that if we want all of that to happen, then there are going to need to be some actions taken. Among other things, someone's going to need to work out how to get PPA packages on the CDs.
And we have volunteers.
Yes.
What?
You're going to work out how to get PPA packages onto the CDs.
Yeah.
That wasn't a question.
I'll add it to the end of my very long to-do list. It might happen in a year.
Now, is that something we need to worry about, or when do you think we need to have that sorted out?
When is the next point release?
Don't they come, a couple months after?
Yeah, the first one, I think 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
And then every 6. So the next.
First one release a lot. For Lucid it was like 2 or 3 months after the release, and then the second one was 6 months after that.
Something like that, yeah. And I don't know if we necessarily need to do how many point releases were there for Lucid? Was it 2 or 3?
Well, the second one was from January. So,
Okay,
yeah,
so it was
only 2 now.
I thought there was a .3 as well.
I believe there is a .3.
Already?
There will be a .3. I don't
Yeah.
believe there's a .3 yet.
Maybe for Hardy, there's
With Hardy, they're up to that 4.
there were 4?
Yeah.
So I don't know if we necessarily want to do, definitely 1 and 2. I don't know if we care about 3 and 4. Point releases, do we?
So
I guess we might as.
I think we probably do care about 3 and 4, because I think we care that because certainly, well, as I understand that many OEM projects would love to ship an LTS until the next LTS and would love to ship that with new hardware. And
Okay.
that sounds like a reasonable statement of OEM preference.
Yes, I think so.
All right.
I think, yeah. That's going to mean a lot of work, isn't it?
Yes.
Wait a second, does this also include codes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that, yes, my
Yes.
answer.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Because the rest of the stack won't work without won't work
Yeah,
properly
that's why
without the kernel.
Can you paste the, there it is.
Oh, there it is.
Can you paste that URL into this section's document?
Yeah, we have.
Reconnect now. This session's document is here.
There we go.
Oh, disconnected.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's the next thing we should talk about? So, did that work out okay this last cycle? With you working on the packaging for things, and now with your
Now with my ability to
Right.
upload, yeah. I think that worked very well for me. I was very happy with how it worked. Were you happy with handling all of the, like with all of that bug work?
Yeah, I was actually impressed. I was able to stay on top of most of it. So that seemed to work.
Yep. I'm happy to continue that for this cycle.
Okay. Packaging should be a lot easier this time too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're sticking with DirectX.
Yep. Sticking with CurrentX, and I can upload.
Yeah,
Which will
that-
make it really
So we're not going to have any ABI transitions, or are we going to have? Will we need to do any mass driver rebuilds at all this cycle?
No. Because yeah, we'll upgrade to X server point releases, but they won't break ABI.
Right,
Yeah, so there will be.
I hope so.
Yes.
If they break ABI, we will complain strenuously.
Okay.
Yeah, and any number of people will complain strenuously if the stable point releases break ABI. They will.
Okay.
There will be blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there shouldn't be any mass rebuilds in this cycle, and the binary drivers should work from the get-go.
Yes, that's a good thing.
That'll be a change.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's intentional. We keep things stable for you. We talked briefly about updating Mesa late into the release. Do we want to do that? And if so, what criteria should we apply to whether to take it or not?
Okay, I don't recall that conversation, but we can have that now, certainly.
Okay.
Updatable.
So what's stable right now?
7.10 is stable right now.
7.2?
Yeah, 7.10.2.
Nutty, yes. So, yes.
We expect 7-Eleven by
We,
August.
I'm not sure where it would be about that time, yeah, because they're now nicely synced up to Intel's release cycle, give or take. Or at least Intel is helping drive that. So, so probably switching relatively early onto 7-Eleven and updating snapshots until stable? Or when are they going to branch that off?
The annual process.
Yeah, that will be branched off at some point, and then there will be a process. Then there will be a period of time when fixes are thing, and then it will be released.
I'd imagine early June when they'll branch for 7-Eleven.
Early June?
Yeah, well, I assume they'll release 7-Eleven with their next quarterly release because
That
that's
would
when
be
they'll
right.
end the initial Ivy Bridge support.
Yep.
So that puts the final release in early July, so based on the past, I'd say early June for branching.
Hey Travis, do you know if your team plans to do much QA work around the open source drivers for 3D for Unity? Like, if we track upstream Mesa, is that going to help you? Or does it matter?
I'm not on the Unity team, so.
Oh, you're not?
No, I'm on our graphics working group.
Oh.
Well, but it helps us if it, because I'm using the extra edges IPA to get GLAS to support. So it's completely different. So I was with the GLAS stuff.
Right.
As a Sandy Bridge user, I always love New Mesa.
So the question, are they QAing the open source drivers at all, or
Or
Yeah.
which
How
open source
much?
drivers?
Intel Radeon. Okay, so there is a discussion to be had. Is Nouveau one of the open source drivers that we're now
We should
shipping?
talk about that first.
Yeah. So the status update is Nouveau are now accepting bugs on their 3D component after it working fine for like a release and a half of Ubuntu, give or take.
The feedback I've seen on it has been pretty good, but it's going to be self-selected towards
Right,
people
that's,
that had good results with it.
yep, that is obviously
So
the
I don't
problem.
know what.
I can help break it.
What, with wine stuff?
Oh, yes.
Oh man, like, yeah. So I think, given that they accept bugs, and given that it would be a big win to have Unity on the live CD, we should probably be shipping it by default. I don't believe it is. I don't believe that it's such that it's too many orders of magnitude less stable than Radeon, say, or Intel. Although it does introduce.
And that's something that we can, maybe we should plan on making a decision at like Alpha 3, maybe?
Based on number of bugs?
Yeah. So if we get a huge Intel level
Yeah.
bug reports,
Mhm.
then flip it off. That shouldn't be hard to
That
disable,
would,
right?
yeah, that would be very easy to disable.
Still, if there are problems with the 3D driver, we can always blacklist it in Unity. As a last resort, we still want to
Yeah, we have options.
give users the chance to drive with just configs. Are we going to get just the classic session with configs in the next release? Or maybe
I don't believe so. I believe
so maybe Unity 2D,
I think
but
on the CD it will be Unity and Unity 2D.
okay.
But the other options are installable from main will include GNOME 3 and presumably GNOME 3 fallback session.
If you want, you can also install well, use compiz with Unity 2D. So why shouldn't we give them the chance to use it?
Compiz alone
Well,
does.
unless it breaks things horribly, but
Yeah, Compiz alone does make fewer demands on the graphics driver than
Actually,
Unity.
you'll have to go out of your way to do Compiz with Unity 2D because they plan on using Compiz 2D mode with Unity 2D.
All right.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
good point.
Yeah, it just disable the composite and OpenGL plugins and it'll run. It's like the alt
You got an
tab
extra
doesn't work.
extension for the backend on campus.
Yeah. I don't think there's actually. Is there an Xrender
No.
backend? No.
Yeah,
So
there's, or it might not be merged, but there is one in existence for campus.
so there's not currently in the Compiz that we currently ship. There's not an Xrender composite backend. It would be technically quite possible, and
Yes.
I know that Sam has been wanting for quite a while to have it done, but is just not particularly in a position to do it. Anyway, that's entirely orthogonal with what we
Right.
have here.
So Michael, you do a lot of testing with the 3D stuff.
Right.
What's your take on it?
Lately for Novo, it's been a hit or miss depending upon the kernel. Like the GeForce 8 series was great for 2.6.38, but now it's 2.6.39 as of like 2 weeks ago. It's broken for GeForce 8, but now works great for GeForce 9. And so it's basically a game of Russian roulette between the kernel releases, because Novo DR has been breaking a lot for, at least on my like dozen or so graphics cards that I regularly test for NVIDIA. But in terms of the very latest for Radeon and Intel, it's been wonderful.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, so
That sounds fun.
That does.
Well, and at least for where it's been breaking with Novo, it's usually Compiz will start up fine, and it's when I'm like launching Open Arena or any other demanding games, it's where I'm hitting the bugs with Galen 3D. So
So it's-
the general desktop experience has generally been stable even for GeForce 8.
And where that certainly matches my experience, although I haven't played around with .39 kernels.
Yeah. What we're mainly interested in is the initial experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Getting booted. Like if they have problems getting booted, that's bad.
Right.
But as long as they can get up and
KMS is
running.
always stable. Like I never have any KMS problems except for like some GeForce 6 series.
Uh-huh.
But you're already
And-
using KMS anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only real concern with 3D, other than it just not working, is that it's also much more likely to get the GPU into a situation where it's hung,
Right.
and that's really the risk with enabling 3D.
But we do have plans for investigating those kind of bugs.
And it's so it would indeed be entirely possible to at least get the Nouveau kernel to
And
ping user
yeah.
space saying, "Oh no, I'm dead."
So then we could at least get.
So then we could get
the
metrics.
stats.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice to have a bug database?
Hey, I'm gonna work on it. Work on it. So given all this, it sounds like
We want it on, and we want to make a decision at Alpha 3 whether to keep it on.
Right.
And what is so what are the criteria going to be when we hit Alpha 3? We're going to keep it on if the number of bug reports is subjectively not very high, or
Will the kernel freeze at Alpha 3 or before then?
when is that's a
I think it's
fair?
after.
Yeah, maybe we should do it. Maybe we should actually do this a couple of weeks after kernel freeze,
Well, I'm
because
thinking-
disabling it is something that we can do. Disabling it is entirely safe.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
I mean, what Michael said is the
if
kernel.
the kernel,
fixed
yeah,
it, right?
yeah, we should indeed determine it on the kernel that we'll be using.
Okay.
So to enable and disable, you just have to move which package the file ends up in, right?
Right. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, like it's really quite it's easy and safe.
Have you guys given any thought to enabling LLVM pipe as the default for fallback now that you're going to have to use LLVM anyways for the other drivers?
He's been playing around with it. Most basically from the CD.
Mm-hmm. If we manage to dynamically link LLVM, is the incremental increase significant?
It shouldn't be if you're removing the old software rasterizer after that.
Yeah, that's like my thinking is that that would be a good idea, but it will depend on how much extra space it takes. That also that does open up if we use it. So if we use it instead of the existing software rasterizer, that will open us up to a set of interesting X bugs. Because
We have enough of
yeah, because the software rasterizer for indirect rendering runs in the X process, and the gallium drivers use threads, which X is utterly unprepared for. So Fedora 15 ran into that. So hopefully they will have run into the bigger if we use that. If it turns out to be technically possible to enable, it's not too big, then hopefully Fedora 15 will have run into the biggest icebergs with using that, and indirect rendering barely works anyway.
Overall, I haven't run into a single problem with LLVM pipe that it's worked very smoothly for me on my tests. Obviously, you need a fast processor if you look to get any gains out of it, but it's at least better than software rasterizer for doing anything.
Really, that's quite the improvement. Last I heard, it was buggier but faster.
Which version and like which?
I don't know. It's been a couple months, I think. I haven't been able to keep track of all of that, so for that, I've actually relied on Veronix.
Little did you know.
Okay, so getting back to Mesa snapshots.
Yes. I guess we take our first Mesa snapshot when they branch, and then, or about when they branch, and then track that through, hopefully, to its first or second point release. Yes.
Do you want to plan on doing new snapshots every couple of weeks or so?
Every 2 weeks would probably be the right sort of cadence.
Do we know what kernel we're going to end up with?
Probably .40.
Yeah, I think so. I tweeted about it. So it's, yeah.
It's going to depend on what Upstream does, but that's what the kernel team wants.
Yeah. In fact, to quote the kernel team, because it's not an LTS, we don't really know at this point, but it will be the one that happens to be there.
Kind of miss the days where you didn't have to worry about that.
Right.
Kind of.
Okay. So, good. Plenty of time.
Oh, one thing with bugs, if you could keep an eye on the Mesa bugs,
Okay. Yeah.
since we're giving snapshots,
That will be
and they're generally aren't that many.
that will be very reasonable.
Hopefully it won't be okay, so is there anything else from the last session that we need to talk about? We didn't get very many requirements, did we?
We did not. There's the dual head stuff,
Oh, yeah.
but that's but essentially the set of work items there are do what we said we were going to do last cycle. Because this cycle we won't be duplicating work.
And then hybrid graphics.
Yes.
Hybrid graphics.
Hybrid graphics.
Something for that just came about, didn't it? Like something.
There's several things that have been
Yeah.
coming out, but so far it sounds like they're fairly, it's like for this particular hardware combination,
Yeah.
It will work,
This one,
kind
maybe
of.
this.
Yeah.
And you still don't get, dynamic switching. It's,
No, there is. So Dave Airlead has some work begun in kernel branch, and I'm not sure if there's a MESA branch associated. I don't think so. And some work in X to make this start to be possible to happen. And I would like it. Yeah.
oh, the main thing is libgl, though. I mean,
Yeah, but before libgl you have to have a kernel which can possibly do it, and then
right.
X needs to be able to handle it, and then you can start talking about libgl.
The biggest, probably the biggest blocker to it is dynamically switching between the GL, the different cards.
Well,
Mostly with the proprietary.
So
drivers.
yeah, with the proprietary, so you're essentially screwed.
Yeah.
Like you're screwed with the proprietary drivers, and will never be unscrewed. It's never ever going to work with the proprietary drivers.
And like 90% of the case that we want, that users will want to do switching
is with the
between
proprietary
open source
drivers,
and the proprietary.
and that's just not going to work.
So do we have any work items that we should worry about doing this cycle for just stabilization? Just making sure that if you boot up Ubuntu on a system that has hybrid graphics, that is going to boot and work, because currently it doesn't always.
Yeah. So some work items should come out of the discussion we had about detecting when a boot is actually successful, and then doing something useful about it when it isn't.
So that may be something I could put into the failsafe X thing, blacklisting, or
Right.
What
Yeah.
are
Like
steps?
there would be a bunch of. Yeah, there would basically be a bunch of escalated levels, the final of which should be blacklist every video device and just bring up on Visa.
Yeah. All right, but what kind of type of myself there?
And apart from that, all the other hybrid graphics bugs are going to be kernel bugs.
Well, pretty much all graphics bugs are kernel bugs these
Yeah.
days. Yeah, we'll need kernel 2.0 for 12.
So are we going to support a switcher? Switchers.
We currently do, to the extent that it should, to the extent that if your laptop is one of the magical ones which works, it should work. But we don't have any UI.
I should say I have many bug reports of it not working. I have never heard of a case, other than
Yeah, well, you don't
Harley's
complain
blog,
if something works, right?
where it does work. So I don't know if we support it, because I've never heard anyone that has successfully shown me a successful working.
Yeah,
It must work for some people.
I believe it does. I think we should probably grab Robert's laptop, because that's switcheroo enabled, and looks very much like it should work.
Now, does the switch root only work from AMD to AMD or ATI to ATI, or will it work Intel to ATI?
It should work Intel to ATI and Intel to NVIDIA.
Okay. To NVIDIA binary driver?
No, 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 no. Sorry, Intel to Nouveau.
All right.
Again, binary drivers not happening.
So about 3D, what about having a testing day, like Fedora a couple of months ago? We pretty much asked upstream what they feel about that. That would be something useful to them. And so.
That's a fine plan. Yes.
What we've done in the past is had regular community proprietary driver testing, which has been like we get people to sign up so that every week, once a week, they boot it on their system and they report results.
Right.
So it's not quite the same, testing day, but it was much more effective, I thought.
Yes, it was.
I think we talked to one of them about doing that again this time.
Right. Well, last time was Farah, I think.
So we would need someone to organize that.
Yeah. It'll help.
That's a disturbingly red test set.
Oh.
So Timo or Alberto, is that something that either of you would be interested in, or shall I take the action for that? I know both of you are pretty busy.
Yeah, well, there's that other item I have to deal with.
Okay.
So, could be too much for me.
Okay.
More package ask upstream. That would be not that much work.
Okay.
So see what they feel about.
It might even just for our use, it might be a good idea to have something like that, so that we try and ensure that we have the raw data necessary to make an informed decision on go or no go.
Yeah.
For Nouveau. It would be also nice to get actionable bugs, but even just some idea of what fraction of systems combust would be useful.
Would it be, in the past when we've done this, we've done it at, like for Intel changes and stuff, we've done it at the sprint. So that we're there with everybody.
Okay.
The only reason I'm a little bit hesitant is because I think that most people at Canonic will have Intel graphics, so you probably wouldn't be very many with Nouveau.
Yep.
But there would be some.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, or would you rather do it online, separate from the sprint?
So it would be nice to have. It's nice to have hardware to poke at. It should probably also be done online.
So do both.
Yeah, I think both.
That's good.
And that should be something that could be easily dealt with on a live CD environment. So you should make it easy as possible to give it a try.
Yeah, I'll take the action to talk to Pete, because I know he was thinking about doing a mini live CD of just kernel and X.
Okay, just will my system come up at all?
Right, and maybe
CD.
some CAN tests or something.
Yeah.
So this might fit in well with that.
Wonder if we could get everyone to run a Piglet suite.
Yeah.
Takes a while though.
The trick is capturing the results and making it useful.
So actually, just one of the things, like quite a useful thing to get out of a Piglet run would be: has the Piglet run actually run to completion, or has it locked the GPU somewhere along the way, or crashed X, or one of those things.
Okay, maybe we can pass log and say, yeah. if it's complete.
Yeah, that would, it would be quite easy to get that. It's quite easy to get that information out.
Okay.
What else are we doing? Do we need, so we probably want to be backporting a couple of things from Xserver 111. CRTC confine and pointer barriers particularly. Do we need to assign that work, or shall that just be me?
Either way.
That is just me.
Okay. I'll be looking at backporting patches, fixes and stuff, as we can verify them.
Yeah.
So I think we have more than 3 releases of work to do so far. But this sounds good. I'm also planning on spending some time this cycle working on the VLCFX or XDiagnose stuff, and trying to put as much into that tool as we can.
Yep.
Do you have any other plans aside from the X core stack?
Not really. I would like to start helping with the GPU switching prime stuff if I get time and some hardware.
After reinventing the multi-monitor.
Yep. After redoing the multi-monitor stuff and some X patches there, and yeah, I think that will probably keep me busy for 6 months.
So what do you mean by GPU switching?
So Dave Airlead has some branches starting to implement buffer sharing between DRM devices, so that hybrid graphics can actually work.
Okay.
With the free drivers.
So
Once again,
of course.
don't expect the proprietary drivers to do that.
So Alberto, what within the limits of what can be said about OEM work, what do you have for plans for this cycle?
Oh, okay. Well, it depends on our projects, so I can't tell you much about it, but we're definitely going to do a lot of kernel work if there are some weird chips involved. If, I'm not saying that there are any, but maybe we'll make use of some experimental PPA if we need, support for newer chips.
So we'll,
Yeah, so, and probably backport a few patches for Mesa, but
fairly standard.
yes. I think this is as much as I'm allowed to say.
What are your thoughts on enabling the KMS Pulse driver?
Yeah. Okay. So assuming that we're going to have any project using that, I guess we will get the proprietary driver.
Right.
I think so. If we need 3D acceleration.
But for better out of the max experience for normal users, just
That's in staging at the moment, right?
it should be in staging, yes, but with 2.6.40, I think it should be in the main tree.
Then we'll have it. Like,
Well,
if,
unless you disable it though.
We're unlikely to disable it.
Okay, well, I just wanted to-
That's not really in our.
Unless that's serious.
We probably wouldn't do much with bug reports,
But-
but we're not intentionally disabling
Yeah.
Yeah,
stuff
like,
that's upstream.
and that would be that'll be a matter for the kernel team's enablement policy. I would presume that if it's not in staging, then it's highly likely that it will be turned on, because that's generally the policy.
I know what's the current stage of driver. Maybe backlight support and some unaccelerated from Docker.
Right, but at least one setting works a bit better, at least for the two systems that I've tried with Qualcomm, compared to the old crap, well, the proprietary driver works fine, but. Well, by fine, I mean at least one sets correctly for like 1920 by 1080 monitors, etc.
Yeah, okay.
Timo, do you have any plans to work on?
Monitoring what the weapon driver and the tools run. And, yeah, there's stuff like detecting all the different things that we may have. And when it is in proximity to detect it and load the old defaults automatically. So stuff like that. I already have the latest release in my P3 and I can't push it in, but no, try it. But, yeah, it's stabilizing and getting better. So I'll be turning that at least. And whatever cost there is, needs touching. So,
So I've been to Martin, so hopefully he will join us. Yeah.
Oh, is he,
Yes, I see.
does anybody know what happened?
Hi.
So if he doesn't show up, well, let's go ahead and talk about post-release driver update possibilities.
Okay.
So this is distinct from the
Point release.
point release. Okay.
So the idea is that we can't update FGLRX or NVIDIA post-release as an SRU because it could potentially cause regression.
Yeah.
But users want to be able to upgrade those drivers. And one way or another they do so, oftentimes.
Yeah.
But the thinking is that can we provide a smoother, more official way for them to do that?
Yeah, something better integrated with
Can we have jockeys say, if you would like to install a possibly broken driver, go here.
Right.
And enable presumably a PPA and
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that it could be done.
Yeah.
One is, have it tied into our X updates PPA or an X updates proprietary PPA.
this could also possibly be, this might be reasonable to do as different package names if we wanted it to be in the main
That's another way to
archive.
do it.
That's
which,
one way.
That wouldn't have the same problems as Mesa because nothing actually depends on the binary packages generated by NVIDIA and FGRX, right? There are no depends?
You build depend on it?
What?
You build depend on them? Or?
I guess things can build depend on them if they want to, but
Not something we.
not something that is
Heavily-
particularly useful to do.
Yeah. And nothing in the archive does At least
Oh,
not-
is
I
there
guess.
CUDA stuff? Would be the only thing that
CUDA.
might.
Don't we only share headers there?
Okay, so there's nothing that would link to. Yep. So basically, the problem with the problem with having a different package name is you then can't have you then can't satisfy dependencies, or if you can satisfy dependencies, you can't satisfy version dependencies. So if there's anything that depends on
Right, no, that's a good point.
But is there, I mean, we have 3 NVIDIA drivers.
Yeah,
Does anything depend on? Then that wouldn't work in this case?
Ubuntu full.
what?
Yeah, I just saw that.
Why?
Question. Yeah, it's not even an or depends. It explicitly depends on NVIDIA dash current.
That's okay. So
That's broken.
Yeah.
let's
That way you end up using NVIDIA's GL library.
yeah, like that will break. So if you don't happen to have an NVIDIA card, installing Ubuntu full will break your system. Fun.
Great.
The only other thing I saw was
Cord came out.
Oh, it did? Okay.
Python PyOpenCL, but that's. I mean,
So what we're talking about is post-release updates of proprietary drivers. Like we talked about.
Yeah, well, I promised him to stop by for the last 15 minutes or so. I was in the other session, sorry.
So yeah, so we were just talking about either by doing it by package renames or having a PPA with the packages in it.
So that would mean like major new versions or back fixes of this same series, like 173?
I'm thinking it would be like.
I
major
think
new-
I think we'd just want the most recent version,
So
and
like
we
keep
could.
the series, like the 4 series we have, and then update them. Okay.
I think really what we'd want is just NVIDIA current. Just have the most recent NVIDIA current possible.
And ignore the older series.
And ignore the older series because those people
Those
generally
ones,
don't
yeah.
like, and those cards see fewer updates.
Yeah.
Like,
I can think of an additional use case for using a PPA. So, maybe it's separate package name. So it can happen that a drive support for a specific chipset is dropped for a new in a newer release. So Jockey should be
same
able
micro release?
to
And the
no,
micro release.
Yeah, well, the new series,
that
yeah.
too, but still Jockey should detect that, right? As
Yeah,
long
for
as
new installations, of course, it won't help
Yes.
you if, like,
But-
you upload a new version of the 173 series, and that stops a certain platform because then dependencies is already installed.
So we should make sure that you're not allowed to install a driver that doesn't work, that drops its support for your chipset,
Yeah.
right?
No, my impression was that within the series, like just the individual small releases, they have a constant hardware coverage, or maybe just add some new.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah, it makes sense to me, but
Like if you have the first version of 173 and the second version of 173, the second version shouldn't drop hardware support for
right.
any hardware support, I think. Maybe it adds some. But... So that was my impression, so please tell me if that's wrong.
No, that's true.
Okay. So the reason why we ship want to ship newer drivers is that it improves support on existing systems, like fixing bugs and graphics corruption.
Yeah.
and also because
Newer chips.
And newer cards, okay.
and also because users tend to want to have the very latest video drivers because they will make their systems, oh my god, fast. And
Let's say some users want.
yeah, some users want that, and providing them
most
with
users are content with once it works, then they'll break it.
yeah, a probably reasonably significant subset of users wants that, and providing an outlet for that which won't result in them breaking their systems in awkward ways and coming onto the launchpad would be nice.
Right. So it seems that like if we want to address, well, if we want to ship actual corruptions that we have, which are fixed by newer version, then this does sound like it's appropriate as a new material.
Right.
If we want to have this like major new version just to improve performance and potentially break stuff, then it sounds like we should have a separate package name and then install this optionally or something like that. So,
Okay.
So
I
a
guess
separate
it's hard to
package name
differentiate between
in the
the two.
archive?
Yeah, like you could have an NVIDIA current
Experiment
Extra or
and
NVIDIA current
right,
2 or whatnot. But
and then SIU whatever, and have an explicit SIU exception for that
right.
package, so you can throw whatever you.
So of course it's a bit similar to what we do with the Linux backports modules.
Mhm.
Of course, my concern
Right.
is that once you jump on the wagon of using Linux NVIDIA current crazy,
Yep.
then you also run into the situation that you can potentially break the system when this package update again.
Yeah.
I think in this case, you probably also made the decision that you already made the decision that you are aware of the risk, and we need to make sure that you don't break it too hard. I think we made it more better by not writing the driver into Xcode anymore, so it at least falls back to the Nouveau. But of course, if it loads and it just looks broken, then there is no way around this.
If it hangs,
But at least it would
there's no fallback.
would certainly provide like a first barrier for the non-suspecting users to not get the updates unless they opted in. So, do you think that would be a compromise, or do you think the regression potential is high enough that we have to do this, or should we just SIU the drivers as they come in?
I don't think regression potential is super high, but I don't think we have any data on it yet.
Yeah, I was just so that would have been my next question. So, do we have any knowledge about what NVIDIA does to test the drivers on existing hardware? So do they certify the driver on the old on all the old models in some way?
Sorry,
Do
I
we
don't
know?
know.
Okay.
Even if I knew,
You could
I
Yeah.
can probably say.
Okay. But it would be an interesting question about how they like what their release process looks like. So if they would tell us like we test them on all the cards which driver claims to support, then this would certainly go a long way towards us just SIUing those. But if we don't know or they don't test all the old hardware, then
Here's the question: have you ever heard someone use the expression "a bad NVIDIA driver version"? Yes, the
I'm
answer
sure
is. There's
Yeah.
an answer. There's
Okay.
regression potential. Right?
so we need to be aware of that. Okay.
On the AMD side, for their quarterly releases where they do the Catalyst versions as the Fire Pro driver versions, those go through additional QA as well with the older cards. I know for a fact. For those releases where they target it for Fire Pro, but it's the same exact thing, it just went through additional QA.
So, my question is, if I enable NVIDIA Crack on my current release, can we push me back to support it when I upgrade, or do we keep me on? I mean, for release upgrade.
Well, you could always switch between the two and Rocky, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, that doesn't help you much if once you're in a situation where it does get broken, you just have a black screen, and there's not much jockey to
We do want to.
Yeah, we could use FailSafeX,
Yeah.
the new app, actually,
Yeah.
the new FailSafeX to restore
So we'd like to make, Grub's failed boot detection stuff.
Oh, when this forces like a free driver or base or something.
When Grub fails to boot correctly, next time you boot, it pops up with the menu, and you have the recovery session available.
Right, but would that
we
would
then-
really help us if once you start the GNOME session, like your desktop goes black because you need to trigger something in GL, blah blah blah. Because at that point we have already recorded that we have a successful boot.
Yeah, so the thinking was to change the definition of a successful boot to something which catches situations like where it's booted correctly but the backlight hasn't turned on. And so the user can't actually, as far the kernel has booted but nothing is working.
Successfully.
Yeah.
So the thinking was to use a heuristic like, did the user shut the computer down through the GNOME system shutdown, or was it a hard shutdown, or
Also,
something
did
like
we at least have one-time session open or something like that?
that? That sounds like another good whereas
So if
like we don't have.
GDM, then something has gone seriously wrong. But of course, GDM doesn't yet exercise the graphics card in a way that it's going to be exercised in the user session. But I mean, I think GNOME itself had something like this. So the next time you log in, it just pops out this dialog that says your session lasted less than 10 seconds. Probably something went wrong that you want to start in safe mode.
And so we'd like to do something like that sort of thing back to Grub. So the next time you boot, you go, oh no, everything's broken. You turn it off, turn it on again, and you get the Grub menu with possibly even another option, make my system work.
Yeah, well, I like the idea of tying it to the shutdown. So like if you just hard boot your machine, then you always land in the Grub menu. Potentially also to even rescue your that would make it. We can tell, can't we? I mean, if we boot in the Drummerfest, we see whether the system partition has been clearly unmounted or not. Not in the Drummerfest, that's too late. We have to do this in Grub.
Yeah.
At which point it might be a little harder to detect it.
And I think
it's possible to detect this easily because Grub can read file systems, but I'm not sure how much of the file system it can actually read.
So getting back to the post-release updates of proprietary drivers, do we have a plan in place for how we're going to implement that? Do we have a decision about what a perfect review is?
Well, my gut feeling is as long as we can be sure that we don't regress, then it might be safer to just have a terminal package like a backports, like a Linux backports module equivalent, and then just keep that up to date. So that it's an opt-in basically. Would that be a reasonable approach? Or?
I think opt-in
Yes,
is good.
my main question is how long are we going to keep that data? Forever? Or until
maybe,
that?
At most until the next release.
Yeah, because the
Not
target
6 months. So.
the target users for this are the people who are
The track
updating.
of the day.
Yeah.
Before.
Is this session over or goes it over the week and a
It's
second
2 minutes.
hour?
3 minutes now.
Yeah, it's still running.
Yes.
So yeah, so as I said, I mean, these people will probably like to upgrade the.
Okay, that makes.
So it wouldn't be more, not more than 6 months.
Yeah, so which will probably mean we have to do this like 4 times per release.
How many
Or
NVIDIA
2
releases are there a
Generally
year?
monthly.
Monthly? Oh wow.
I don't know if we pull in everyone every month, but for NVIDIA, anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think FGLRX is nearly that frequently.
No, I thought it was the other way around. I thought the FGLX driver had a monthly release.
Yes, that's monthly.
It doesn't
Yeah.
And then NVIDIA, it's usually monthly, but most of those NVIDIA releases are usually betas or they're pre-releases.
Yeah, you get like a stable one every 2 or 3 months, right?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah.
2.5
And we
months for
probably
stable.
wouldn't take the beta releases because users who want to do that can
Well, we certainly have the PPA for that.
Yes.
yeah.
Let's take it.
So I mean, these are
Stable
actually the
release.
users we want to get for testing, but they really should know what they are doing and
Yeah.
not pull themselves out of this form. And I'm actually wondering whether we should make it easier for those to get to the PPA and then
Can I ask
install.
how preposterous it is to have NVIDIA run the PPA?
We have actually talked to them about that.
Okay.
So it's not preposterous, but it's not happening right now.
Okay.
We need to talk to Colin about the grub work.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Or like marking the unclean, seeing the unclean partitions and bringing up the menu.
Yeah, like that, or just talking about it on the off chance that he has other such brilliant observations like that one. Like, to work out what the trigger should be and how to get the trigger implemented.
Well, certainly already, like right now, it gets into the level where it would show you the menu if X fails to start completely, I think. I'm not sure about it,
Yeah.
but I have the feeling that it's working that way. But of course, it doesn't help in the GNOME session anymore when GL already fixed it.
Yeah.
Or we have to talk to Robert and require GL and GDM or something like that. All like
Hey!
That's actually the plan, I believe. A 3D launcher using Nux, so the same requirements as Comp is, or Ars Unity more or less. and then a fallback to a 2D launcher if you don't know 3D.
I don't actually think that's a terrible idea.
I think
'cause-
they are finally going to do the face browser thing, maybe?
Ooh.
At last. Okay.
Okay, well, we can follow up with Colin on that, and we'll follow up with you on jockey stuff.
Yeah, I mean, adding like support for this backwards thing is trivial really. So we already support like 4 series, and it's just another series really.
Yeah, and one more for FGRX, right?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So we need to yeah.
Yeah, so
Slightly more complicated, but not like.
we're going to need some work on the jockey NVIDIA common.
Right. So NVIDIA Common needs to.
We're going to deal with
Yeah.
FGRX.
It needs to not recommend the backwards one and recommend the current one by default. And then.
Okay,
Okay, I'd say that sounds doable. So.
yes.
Go out. Hey.
Otherwise, yay for
For
the package fields for one alias. It helps so much.
Yes.
Yeah.